Hey guys, from the National Religious Broadcasters Convention in Nashville, Tennessee, it's episode 236, How to Live by Faith with Jeremy Camp. Let's do it.
This is the definitive podcast for helping you plan, create, and execute dynamic worship experiences at your church. Useful, practical content in the areas of production, worship, communications, first impressions, and more. This is Making Sunday Happen.
Hey guys, welcome to Making Sunday Happen. We're recording from the Gaylord Hotel and Convention Center in Nashville, Tennessee at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention, the NRB. We've been here all week and we've seen some amazing speakers and sessions. Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos was here. Attorney General William Barr was here. Actor, producer, director Kevin Sorbo was here. We got an interview with him that we're going to be sharing in the next couple of weeks. All named pastors and speakers, Ali Stuckey, and who's a big name conservative podcaster, and Kay Arthur, and all kinds of speakers and exhibitors are here, and we're excited to be here. I'm leading the volunteer team for this event. It's an amazing event. And we are super excited to be here. So this week and the next few weeks of shows, we will be recording from the NRB, so we can't wait to share some of the footage and the interviews that we got while we have been here this week. This week on the show, I'm going to welcome singer, songwriter, musician, worship leader Jeremy Camp to the show. The brand new movie, I Still Believe, is in theaters on March 13th, so it's coming up fast. And I'll be talking with Jeremy about the movie, about songwriting, about worship leading, and about how to walk by faith when tragedy hits. We're going to talk about how Jeremy walked by faith through a personal, very personal tragedy that he had to go through his life and ministry, and the movie details that. So if you're a worship leader and you're dealing with a tragedy in your life, or any church staff member, this is a great episode for you. I know a few months ago we talked with Mike Weaver from Big Daddy Weave about something similar when he lost some family members and had just gone through a bunch of tragedy, and how do you serve in ministry? How do you continue to pastor people when you're going through tragedy yourself? So that's what we're going to be talking about some with Jeremy. You're going to get to see behind the scenes stuff from the movie, so that and also some resources that you can provide to your church and to your volunteer team. This is a great movie to take your volunteers to if you are a church media director, communications director. If you want to gather up your team, gather up your volunteers to go see this movie, take some tissues because it is a tearjerker, and you're going to really enjoy it. The production value, everything about the movie is fantastic. I Still Believe. It's coming to theaters March 13th. All right, so before we jump into my interview with Jeremy, I want you to see this little clip of some behind-the-scenes stuff about the film. Check this out.
After I Can Only Imagine, Andy and I weren't even looking for another music movie.
I still believe.
But when you encounter a story that good and that meaningful and that inspiring, we both say this has to be our next film.
The DNA of our brand, it constantly comes back to a rush of hope. I think Jeremy and Melissa's story speaks specifically to that.
It's really a gift to be able to tell a true life story. There's something really special to it. I think I Still Believe kind of chose us. The film itself really is a beautiful love story, and so we all kind of can relate to that.
Just the idea that he's willing to endure whatever version of life that they get together just because he wants to have every moment with her, that to me is like romance.
I hope people, after seeing the love between Jeremy and Melissa, think, wow, I hope that I can one day be in love like that.
We see the joy, we see the hope, we see the inspiration that these two in their relationship provide.
And that was the whole heart of it. That's what sold us on the movie.
It's a really authentic story that shows young love going through some of the biggest challenges that you can imagine.
I still believe.
I am so scared. But if one person's life is changed by what I go through, it'll all be worth it.
Jeremy goes into this knowing that he's up for a battle. and yet he wants to be part of the army to fight with her.
This is a love that goes beyond fear, that goes beyond any doubt.
I don't know the answers to your questions, but I do know this, that my life is not full in spite of the disappointments. It's full because of them.
That's what this movie is about, is journeying through your biggest fear and coming out the other side still believing, still loving God.
This is a song that God gave me as a gift to heal me, and I believe that God's going to use it to heal many people.
I can't wait for the world to see this movie.
I still believe. I still believe.
I've never met anyone like you before.
I'm just one star in an infinite galaxy.
Some stars shine brighter than others.
Hey guys, today I welcome singer-songwriter Jeremy Camp. Jeremy has released over 11 albums over his career, 4 of them gold certified. The brand new movie, I Still Believe, is a story about loss, grief, and the spiritual journey that followed. The film hits theaters on March 13th. Jeremy, man, welcome. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate your time, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. So how weird is it having a movie about your life?
It's funny. People ask me that, and I'm like, yeah, it's. Well, you don't think growing up that one day all of a sudden they're going to make a movie on your life. It just doesn't even. It's not even a thing where you even have in the back of your mind. Actually.
And who's going to play me?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the whole thing too. When they first started asking about casting, they're like, we have some ideas and some people. I had no clue. I'm like, well, who are they going to get? And they're talking about these different actors that actually pretty big actors. And I was kind of like, really? And then it's funny because when they asked about KJ, I didn't really know who he was. And so I was kind of like, oh, is that going to be okay to have this kid that I don't know who he is? And all of a sudden I realized he's a huge actor that among the younger generation is like, you know, they all know who he is and love him. So he was amazing. So,
all right. So we'll get into the cast a little bit more in a minute, but tell us a little bit about the story. So this is your early life. So for those who may not know, give us a snapshot of what we're going to see on screen.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it's one of those things where it takes my life from going from small town Lafayette, Indiana, going off to college. And I met this girl named Melissa, and she was incredible. For me, it was kind of love at first sight, because I remember when I first saw her, you know, we were in this worship kind of moment, and I looked up and she just had this look on her face like she was in the presence of Jesus. And I think for me, that attracted me to her so much. And so the whole story is our love story and how we met, and the ups and downs, of course, of love and how that happens. But it really shares a lot of the battle that we went through when we found out she had cancer. We got engaged during the time that we knew she had cancer and weren't sure what was going to happen, but I just knew I wanted to be with her no matter what. And, you know, I don't want to give away the story if people don't know it, but it was hard. And the story shows the hard struggle, and it shows the wrestle with the Lord and how I went through that. And that's what I love about this film too. It's very transparent, you know. It's not a fluffy film that's everything was tied in a perfect knot, you know, bowed up perfectly. It was raw and real, and that really was what happened. And so I think for me to get out there this story that points people to Jesus is, for me, the whole reason why I'm doing it. Because who cares about a movie if it's just a movie? There's got to have a purpose behind it, and the purpose is we all go through hardships and trials, but Jesus is the answer.
Well, man, I got to see a screening of the film a few months ago.
Oh, wow.
In kind of a raw form. They were still doing some crowd inserts and special effects and stuff like that. But man, I got to tell you, I was surprised by it. Just the power of the story, the performances. I mean, all of it just came together well. What'd you think of the final product? Are you happy with how it turned out?
Yeah, I think honestly, it was better than I expected. And, I will say that I actually had really high expectations because, when Lionsgate, who is a major movie studio, when they decided to take on the project with the Irwin brothers, I was like, well, I'm sure they're not going to do anything cheesy. You know what I mean? They're going to do the best that they can. And so I had high expectations, and it exceeded my expectations. I think that was incredible because I didn't think that could happen, because I really was looking for something great, and they did an amazing job. So
yeah. Well, man, the films just keep getting better and better. Better. The Irwins coming right off of I Can Only Imagine onto this one. Awesome. All right. So what are some things that they got right? What are some things that they embellished or meshed together, characters that were a conglomeration? Give us the real scoop. Come on.
Yeah. What's great about it is that everything, it was so accurate, that I'll give you the 3 things in it. It's kind of a inside scoop that they had to place 2 characters together. So Jean-Luc, who is my mentor in the story, he knew Melissa. He was my mentor. He was a musician, all that's real. But what happened was there was another guy who was a good friend of mine that actually liked Melissa. But I don't want, I hate saying that because I don't want to but they had to mesh those stories together. And because they couldn't develop 2 characters. There's only 2 hours that you get. But I talked to both the guys, and I hate even saying that. I'm probably not supposed to even say that. But that was one of the major things I had to do, just to not develop too many characters in the story. But it doesn't take away, or it doesn't feel like it's embellished. Does that make sense? It feels completely, it's okay. You know what I mean? It's not a big part of the story that's has to be this guy. And that's pretty much that. And then, honestly, we got engaged randomly, like you'll see in the movie. That was real. It was a little more romantic probably than what I did, but it definitely was. But
they gave you a little bit more chops there, huh?
Yeah, they did. But it definitely was as random as that, where she didn't know what I was doing. And I was like, hey, if we're going to get married, then we got to be able to walk this together. And that happened, that moment of wait, you're asking me to marry you? That really happened.
Yeah.
So,
all right. So one thing I heard is that Gary Sinise, who plays your dad, dude, you had Lieutenant Dan. What an incredible actor playing the role of your dad. I love that. But there's a moment, I don't want to give too much away, but there's a moment where kind of in your bedroom, where those 2 characters talk, your dad and you. And so I know that was kind of a conglomeration of some things that your dad had told you over a period of time. Is that right?
Which is true. Yeah. And, one of the things that's said in the film that is very much my dad is he sat down, and Gary said this to KJ, or my dad to me in the film. And he said, my life is not full in spite of my disappointments. It's full because of them. And that is literally an accurate portrayal of the heart behind my dad and him ministering to me. So it was a beautiful moment. I think it's going to be a very touching, real, raw moment that's going to be powerful.
Well, I mentioned Gary Sinise. Tell me about the cast of the film for those who may not know.
So there's, of course, Gary Sinise playing my dad, which is crazy. Shania Twain actually plays my mom, which is another one that people are pretty shocked about. How does Shania Twain playing your mom? How does that feel? That's pretty crazy. And then this kid, KJ Appa, actually is, playing. Oh, sorry, you there? My phone did something weird.
Keep going.
This kid, KJ Appa, is playing me, and he was in a TV show called Riverdale and a bunch of other movies like Dog's Purpose, and he did an incredible job. He has a huge following that I didn't even know was there, and the comments from his fans they're ready to see it. They cannot wait. Britt Robertson has been in Tomorrowland with George Clooney, and she was in Dan in Real Life with Steve Carell, and she's been in a lot of amazing movies, and she's actually an amazing actress. Like you said, I think you'll be surprised on how well they portrayed, and the love story and the chemistry, all that kind of stuff. It feels very real and very authentic. I think you'll be blown away.
Yeah, you're not going to get a lot of people that talk to me about Christian movies is we used to have a kind of a disclaimer. Well, if you can get past the acting, it's all right. This is not that kind of movie.
It's not that at all.
No, the acting is top notch. The
Yeah.
story, the production, everything about it is just very, very well done. Okay, so tell me some of the difficult times. So was there anything in filming that really stirred up, like, oh man, I don't know if I can see that or watch that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, there's a couple moments where one time they were filming and I had to leave and I just broke down and my wife came, walking after me and just I laid my head on her shoulder and just cried. And it's the reality of this. It wasn't like, you know, oh, this is going to be great and exciting. It's like it's going to bring up hard things. And I think that's one thing I always try to tell people is that it's the hardest part of my life. It's the most difficult moment. There's a hard grief that I went through and pain that I went through, and it's gotten brought up. And so, it's raw and it's not an open wound, but it's a scar that you look at and are reminded of some of the pain. But I look now at my family and what God has done, looking at my family and the doors that God's opening to minister the gospel. And I'm like, Lord, this is beyond what I could even fathom. And, but not without hardships. I watched the movie and I broke down every time I watch it, I break down. So it's reality of what it is.
So you mentioned that the movie does not wrap up in a pretty bow. So tell me what it was like in real life you guys got married, you went on your honeymoon, things were looking up and then things were looking down very quickly.
Yeah.
Tell me about
Yes.
that period and how God kind of took you through that time.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, the whole thing behind the story, which was hard, just even reliving it, was the fact that, I knew going into getting engaged with her that we didn't know what was going to happen. That I knew that. So the reality was there. But I think once we went through chemotherapy and things were looking better, I think that there was just this, we thought we'd gotten through it.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were on our honeymoon and she noticed some pain in her stomach and some complications, like stomach felt swollen, and all of a sudden it was just kind of this feeling of what's happening here. And the fear started kind of coming up again. And so we got back home, and that's when the doctor said that she had weeks to months to live. And it was just the whole, I think, up and down of the situation that you'll see in the movie. It's really hard to swallow the reality of that. But, you don't end up though leaving, even though I said it's not wrapped up in a nice little bow, and, you end up feeling hopeful though.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beautiful thing about it, as as you've seen it. But you just see the real raw factor of it. And I think that's so important because you see me getting angry. You see me, in despair, and that was all real stuff. And so, but you walk away feeling hopeful. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it.
So with that, talk to people who think that maybe surrendering your life to Christ is a bed of roses. It's going to be pretty pastures from here on out. Obviously not the case.
Obviously, right.
And you live that. So tell me how this story is going to really hit those people who are wrestling with maybe salvation or wrestling with, God, I gave my life to you. I mean, things should be better than this.
Yeah.
Tell me how you wrestle with that.
There's a bunch of things. I mean, it's been a while, and I've walked through a journey of all this too, and I've heard story after story and had conversations. One thing I can tell people, and I tell people all the time, Jesus actually never did say that once you come to me, everything's fine. He actually said the complete opposite. He goes, I say these things and you'll have peace. In this world, you will face trials of many kinds, but take heart, I've overcome the world. And there is this automatic, like, he doesn't leave us in a place where he's like, everything is going to be great when you come to me. He many times says, the world will hate you on account of me. Like, you're going to go through trials, but I've overcome the world. But I am the answer. I'm the one that's going to walk you through it. I'm going to actually leave with you my spirit, because he says to the disciples, I leave with you my spirit, so that you're not left alone to do this on your own. So he never promises to not allow us to go through those things. He always promises that he'd be with us during them and give us the strength and ability that we need. And I think that reality, and the reality of that scripture where it says this is a momentary affliction. It's momentary compared to the weight of glory in store for us in heaven. I think that's the beauty of it, is that it's in the moment, it's hard because it doesn't feel momentary. It feels like it's everything. But when you realize in light of eternity and in light of his kingdom, it's momentary. It's nothing compared to what we have waiting for us in heaven. And, I always encourage people. Here's three kind of things that I've learned in this. God promises. So when you're going through something like this, okay, he promises he'll never leave you nor forsake you. So even though you feel like he's far away, he's not. He said, I'm going to be here. I'm not going to forsake you or leave you. That same scripture I said, it's momentary affliction.
Yeah.
This is momentary. And then at the other crux of a grief moment is going, Jesus actually did say, my God, why have you forsaken me? He had a question moment. Did he sin in that? Absolutely, because he didn't sin. But he had a question moment. He wasn't questioning God or doing this whole thing, but he was just, why? And I think that people needed the freedom to say why. It's okay. God's big enough. He's okay. He's big enough to handle our questions. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a point where, what did Jesus say right after that on the cross? He goes, but into thy hands I commit my spirit. There is a surrender to his will. You have to have a point where you don't get stuck and you actually surrender to his will. And I think that's the huge thing about grief, is like, it's okay to grieve. It's okay to have questions and to be confused and be hurt and all that. But you have to kind of at some point go, I don't understand. This doesn't make sense. This hurts really bad, but I'm going to trust you. I'm going to choose to trust you and choose that what your word says is true.
So as you came to that point, that's the moment for you, correct me if I'm wrong, where I Still Believe the song came from.
Absolutely.
So walk me through that.
So, it was all those emotions, all those things, all those questions, everything. And God literally just spoke to my heart and said, I want you to pick up your guitar. And I didn't want to pick my guitar up. Like, it was the last thing I wanted to do. And after the wrestle with him about 3 times, kind of like Peter, I needed 3 times of saying something, to get my attention. I picked the guitar up and I just wrote what I was feeling. And if you read the lyrics of this song, it's very much transparent. Scattered words, empty thoughts seem to pour from my heart. I've never felt so torn before. Seems I don't know where to start. But it's now I feel your grace fall like rain. As I was writing, I was feeling like his grace fall like rain. From every fingertip washing away my pain, I started feeling that release. And then all I could say was, okay, I still believe in your faithfulness. I still believe in your truth. Even when I cannot see, I still believe. And it's that whole release of surrender. Even though it still doesn't make sense, it's still a surrender.
Good. All right, so people need to realize this is like almost 20 years ago for you.
Yeah. It's been
So
19 years, February 5th.
wow.
Crazy.
All right, so take me to today. And people, I didn't know that that your current wife, Adrian, which I knew, I used to do radio, so I knew Benjamin Gate.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that the connection was there. I didn't know that she saw you in concert. Was all that true? Where she was like, I was one of those that was affected by the story.
The 100% was true. Now, let me give you the timeline difference.
Okay.
And where they had to kind of, so she wasn't following my story. She had heard me at a concert that we were at talk about it and started asking me more questions about it. And she told me later, I was one of those people that was ministered to by Melissa. And so that was real. It just was a timeline difference. They had her following more like early in the story, just to kind of have some kind of relating, why she was there. But that happened. She'll to this day say that she was affected. She was one of the lives affected by Melissa.
Well, as we wrap today, you guys have written a marriage book together, right? It releases this year. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's called In Unison. It comes out in April. And honestly, it's not like a biography. It's literally just the story of things that we've learned in marriage and what God's taught us and biblical principles that we've used. It's all putting Christ first in our relationship, and that's what we've learned through the whole thing. But it's very transparent, very real, raw. It shares things that we've been through and things that we talk about, but gives you the tools that we used and learned. Not that we figured it out, but we've learned tools and learned through our mistakes and things, how to walk through marriage. And we're still learning, and we're just wanting to share with people what we've learned so far. So
yeah. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time today. The film is I Still Believe. March 13th is the film, and April is the book, right?
Yeah, absolutely. April 7th.
Awesome, man. Well, what do you want people to walk away with as they watch the film?
Honestly, everyone's looking for hope in some way. Even believers sometimes, even though they have hope, they're still kind of like, I feel a little hopeless. My hope is that people will walk out here going, yeah, just it's Jesus. It's running to him for everything. And if you don't know Christ, knowing that you have to come to know him to have any sort of hope. If you do, knowing that you have to continue to run to him for that answer and that hope.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate you, bro.
The show notes for this episode are available now at makingsundayhappen.com.
Hey guys, again, for resources or group tickets to take your volunteers or anyone to go see this movie, istillbelievemovie.com. That's istillbelievemovie.com. Check it out. Great production value. The acting is really great. Gary Sinise is in it. Shania Twain is in it. KJ Apa from the show Riverdale is in it. So you want to check it out, istillbelievemovie.com. All right, this week we're going to check the mailbag as we have a question this week from Mark Randolph from Silverdale Baptist Church in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Here's Mark's question. Check this out.
Hey guys, I'm wondering what you might be doing to help your camera guys get better. Mine do a pretty good job for the most part, but I'm just trying to help them get to another level in their expertise to understand how to go get a shot and how to use that shot in the middle of a worship service. I don't know if you have any resources or anything like that that I might not be aware of, but I'd certainly be open to hearing what you guys have to offer and have to say. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for your question, Mark. Yes, all right. So I'm going to give you a few resources to check out, and then I'm going to talk through a couple of ideas for you, okay? So in the show notes for this episode, at makingsundayhappen.com/236, that's makingsundayhappen.com/236, we're going to be posting links to 3 different blog articles that I think is going to be they're going to be very beneficial for you as you're training your camera crew. So again, makingsundayhappen.com/236. Links to all 3 of these articles are there for you. One of those articles is from my friend David Leuschner on using volunteer camera operators and how to achieve a great worship experience or great camera experience from those volunteers. So that article is going to be linked over there. And then second article is from me, and that is a completely free camera training guide for your volunteers. I give you a checklist. I give you some notes on how to train your volunteer camera operators. So that's free to you, and that's the second article. So third article is another article from me on some advanced tips for stationary and roaming camera operators. So if you're a director at your church and you want to train your stationary cameras, like those on a tripod, and also roaming stage cameras, this is a great article for you. Again, I give you a checklist of what to walk through during your training material. So be sure to grab that. Again, makingsundayhappen.com/236. All right, these articles are going to give you some tools, some resources, some ideas for training your camera operators. But I want to walk through a couple of those ideas that are in those articles now. Okay, so I can give you some real practical stuff. The first thing is to help your director build a puzzle. Here's what I mean by that. You're going to work shots as your camera, as a camera operator. You're going to see what's on screen that your director is taking, and you want to set him up for the next shot. So this works especially well with slow songs or slow dissolves and fades. So if your camera is, you have framed your subject, let's say that's your worship leader, if you put that subject on the left side of your frame, or let me back up and say, if you're the shot from your director on screen, which you probably can see if you're holding a camera, if you can see that they've framed the worship leader to the left, you want to frame the worship leader to the right. You also want to, if they're on a close-up, you want to be on a wide shot, or vice versa. Okay, so you don't want to give the director the same exact shot that another camera has. You want to help them build a puzzle so that when you dissolve, it's not a person on top of a person, it's a wide shot to a close-up or dissolve. You also want to bring in your subject from somewhere. Let's say you're off in the top left. You want to bring your subject in and land them in the left part of your frame or something like that. You want to give them something to go to. So that kind of leads into my second thing, and that is how to shoot with the end in mind, okay? This is giving your director an intro or an outro of your shot, okay? So you want to show your director, hey, I'm going to go from here and I'm going to land on the worship leader. So keep doing that. Hey, I'm going to go from here, I'm going to land on the worship leader, because your director backstage is watching all the shots, and if I'm directing, I'm going to see what you're showing me. I'm going to go, I like that one, hold that for just a second, and I'm going to come to you. All right, one, all right, I'm bringing in one right now, make your move, one, that kind of thing. Okay, so you're one, helping your director build a puzzle, and you're two, shooting with the end in mind, meaning you're shooting with knowing where you're going to land the shot before the shot comes to you, okay? So the third thing that I would suggest when you're training your camera operators is how to serve more prepared. Here's what I mean by that. You want to teach your camera operators to listen to playback or to watch rehearsal. So if you're doing a run-through or rehearsal on a Wednesday night, let's just say, your audio guy needs to record that rehearsal and that run-through. And you need to post that on Planning Center, and you need to have your camera operators or volunteers listen to that playback before Sunday, okay? And you can actually check on it in Planning Center to see if they do it, okay? And you probably want to encourage that. Hey guys, last week I posted the audio file of the run-through from Wednesday night, and I noticed that no one watched it. No one listened to it. So I want to encourage you, please, please, please listen to the playback so that you know what is coming this Sunday, okay? You also want to encourage them to read through the production notes. You are sending them production notes before Sunday. Remember that. So you want to include that in your email. So you want to have your camera operators look through those production notes before Sunday. You also want them to study Planning Center. So you don't want them to walk in and, oh, what are we doing? You want to encourage them during the week. Hey, I'm posting this on Planning Center. The flow is up there. I want to encourage you. Know when we're doing this song, how it flows into the next thing, how it flows into the next thing. You want them very familiar with your flow before you walk into Sunday. Okay, so those are 3 tips for you, Mark. 1 is helping your director build a puzzle. 2, teaching them how to shoot with the end in mind. And 3, teach them to serve more prepared. So you're preparing them for Sunday. All right? So again, go to makingsundayhappen.com/236, and articles, I lay this out even more. All 3 of those articles will be a huge help for you. Well, I hope these resources really help you, Mark. I really appreciate the question, man. Thank you so much for sending it in. Well, I want you to, for all the show notes for today's episode, I want you to go to that same website, makingsundayhappen.com/236. All the show notes, all the links I just mentioned, all that will be there. So please be sure to check that out. And also, while you're listening and watching the podcast, especially while you're listening to it, if you're listening on iTunes or Google Play or wherever you consume podcasts, I would love for you to leave a rating and review of our podcast. It would really help us in the rating system that the podcast platforms have. And it will help us get this content out to more people. So that's the goal. The podcast is completely free. We want to help churches and you make Sunday happen at your church. So please do that for us if you would, if you have a minute this week. Well, thank you guys so much for listening and watching. I can't wait for you to see the next few weeks of the podcast. We have some fantastic interviews with people like Kay Arthur and Kevin Sorbo and actress Ashley Bratcher and Justin Dean and Kenny Chang and more. It's all coming up the next few weeks on the show. All right, so I want you guys to go out there and create some incredible worship experiences this weekend. I'll catch you next week.
Making Sunday Happen is a production of the Ministry of 1230 Media. For show notes, archive episodes, and more free resources for your church, visit makingsundayhappen.com.